Nave cohort, we are back on a Saturday. We're going up doing some teaching here with DCS. And by personal request, we are going to go ahead and make this one about the AGM-45 Shrike. And we're going to follow up a little bit with the AGM-88C when we change aircraft and run it again here with the F-16C Fighting Falcon. As you can kind of hear in the background, we are already in the jet, and we are getting ready to go. So let's go ahead and toggle things over so you can see it. And we will talk about what we're doing and where we're going today while Jester is finishing alignment. There are a few places we're going to visit. First one we're going to go to is out here near Creech. And we're going to attack an SA-2 system that's not going to come right after us. So we can really kind of play with that one a little bit.
Alignment's done. Go primary sync now. We're ready to taxi.
There's an SA-3 system that we're going to attack at our usual place there. And out here we have a new friend. That we're going to be using our Shrikes against today. And this is the SA-6 system. So as usual here, before we get super settled, let's go ahead and put our helmet on. Thank you, Ihort. Take the chocks off the jet.
Canopy down and locked. Lights out and stripes aligned.
Yes, sir. Chocks out.
And we'll go ahead and give it a pause and we'll do our walk around. So I'm taking a configuration I would not normally take if I was coming up here to do seed work. This is specific to using the weapon systems and making the most of our time here today. As it's really not super beneficial to carry 4 ARMs and not a whole lot much else. But in this particular case, we've got Shrikes on the outer and special pylons. And some Mark 82s to try and help us do a little cleanup on the center line. This also lets us carry our defensive armament of Sidewinders and Sparrows, which is a little helpful. All of the Shrikes we're using today are using the white phosphorus charge to mark the target. In the event of a near hit or miss, it will put a little smoke marker on the ground that lasts for about a minute. Our outermost pylons are configured for Loft. So we're going to use those in Loft mode. These are going to be tuned for the SA-6 and for the SA-2's flat face search radar. Loft mode is a special mode there for the Shrike that we can use to try and pitch them up into the sky and get a little bit further range out of them. There's a special configuration for the jet as far as how we set them up to use those weapons. That's a little bit different than what we did the last time we were flying with them. On our inner pylons, we have those configured for the SA-6 and for the flat face search radar as well, but these are in direct mode that we were using before. Personally, it's my preference to use them in direct mode, and we'll show some of the reasons why that is as we get going. And of course, I got Mark 82s in the center line to try and help round that out. Let's go ahead and get back into the aircraft. Adjust my head tracking a little bit. And we will unpause.
You're all set, sir. Have a safe flight. Disconnecting.
It's time to fly.
So we're going to run this with the F4 with the Shrikes. And then we will flip things around and we will run the same course there with the F-16 and Harms.
Are we going to be down in waterfowl territory in this flight?
Oh, Jester, buddy. You don't even know. We're going to let you figure that out on your own. So let's talk a little bit about how the Shrike operates, how it works, and its limitations, because there's a lot of things that you do have to understand about the Shrike before that is going to make a little sense to you. More modern anti-radiation missiles have circuitry, computers, and other little things on the inside of them that can help remember where a SAM site is, roughly, if it stops transmitting, so that it can try and attempt to continue the attack. That is not Shrike. Shrike relies upon continuous radar inputs from the source that you're trying to shoot in order to guide. And if it loses that for any reason, whether the seeker head falls out of place, meaning, you know, it's no longer able to see or sense the target in the center of its cone, if the radar turns itself off, if the radar that was transmitting in one band stops transmitting in that band to transmit in a different band. If any of those things happen, Shrike is going to fail to guide. And you're pretty much relying upon it already being on a good terminal ballistic trajectory to be able to hit and deal any kind of damage at all to the target. Which is why they got those white phosphorus charges, because in theory, you know, if you were to shoot this at an SA2 site, and it's fan song, you shoot this at a low blow, you shoot this at, you know, a straight flush, and the guy on the ground gets wise to it and goes, oh crap, that Phantom just fired a missile at me, let's turn the radar off. You know, if the missile was already on a good ballistic trajectory, there's odds it might at least get close to the target, which is what we saw the other day. Last week when we were doing this, we used a Shrike to attack an SA3 site, and the missile fell slightly short. The SA3 was still transmitting. We knew that because we could see it on the RWR still. But since the weapon got close to the target, we were able to, in theory, attack it again with iron bombs or have somebody else behind us follow up.
Engine's good. Airspeed's coming alive. 80 knots.
Yeah, so it's a weapon that had certain, I don't want to say fail-safes, it's not quite the right word for it, but had certain capabilities that even if you didn't hit the target and you got close enough to it, you could at least mark it in the dense jungle. Or follow-up attacks in the next minute.
Gears moving. Gear up.
Alright, so let's go ahead and get ourselves set for navigation. And we're going to start with the loft target, SA2.
2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Roger. Steering set for diverting.
We're going to select our first outer pylon there. The other thing that's kind of a caution for the Shrike is that if you have multiple pylons selected, it will fire all of them sequentially. Which is not always the case that you want with the Shrike, because very rarely do you have, you know, a bunch of missiles tuned to the same seeker head on board. So make sure you only select the pylon that you want. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this set to go. we have on our delivery mode, there's an AGM-45 setting. This is for the loft mode of the AGM-45.
Mud on our nose, 12 o'clock. AAA.
Set this up for ARM. Open system is armed. Now the key things about the loft mode, as we're going to need our bombing computer here as well, is we need to know what altitude the ground is. In this case, just put a little cursor over about where we want to shoot, and it's going to be about 3,200, and we're just going to round it to 40 feet, so 3,240. We get into our bombing computer there, that's with a right control B. And we're just going to go in here and set it to WRCS AGM-45. The target's altitude is at 3,240 feet.
Roger.
And we're going to have Jester program that in. Now, where that becomes important is that we are basically saying this is where the ground is, and our rudimentary computer on board the F4 is going to calculate what angle, distance, and everything else we need to be at in order to pitch the missile up and have it come down looking in the right spot to try and conduct this attack. Got a lot of angry RWR noises, but we are going to try and attack.
New bogey. Right 50, 17 miles, 19,000. Positive IFF, positive IFF.
We're going to try and attack that point out there from about 15 miles away. Because since we are pitching the missile skyward first, we can get a little bit of range out of that. Sorry, it's coffee time there, folks. Now, there's going to be some symbology that we're going to be looking for. I'm going to pause here real quick as we talk about that. Because this actually uses the indexer to provide us with pull-up cues. So once the rudimentary computer on board the aircraft figures out, you know, hey, I think we're in good conditions, I think we can shoot this.
2 o'clock.
The indexer will light up and it will tell us with the little chevron on the bottom to pull up, or the chevron on the top to push down, and the circle to hold position until the weapon comes off the rail. And that's pretty much how we'll know that we're in good shape for that. Some of the things that I've seen with loft mode is that if conditions are not exact, you're not going to get the cue, and you'll just keep flying and barreling towards your target, wondering, you know, hey, I thought we were supposed to be sending a missile out here system, which is why I tend to like shooting them in direct is a little bit better. Because it's more immediate. You do have to be a lot closer for direct mode. And, you know, as always with everything you do with the Shrike, you're always going to be inside the lethal range of whatever system you're trying to attack. Always. There are no situations where your Shrike is going to outrange whatever it is you're throwing a Shrike at. You know, the one sterling exception to that, and I use that term very loosely, is probably the fire can radar, because there are Shrikes that are tuned to kill fire can, and by virtue of it aiming guns, you know, that might save you a little bit. climb just a little bit more.
Oh, we got mud, 1 o'clock. SA6.
No, I think this SA2 site, because I have the AI set to off on it, might not even be
That's a
transmitting.
new bogey, all right. Right.
Let's go ahead and we will go to the SA3 site.
16,500. All right, man. IFF is good. That's a friend. Steering set in TGT-1.
It's good to know our friend the SA6 is up, though. Now, I would suggest using Loft mode, especially against these search systems. Especially in this case, because we're probably going to be outside of reach when we first throw the missile of the actual track radars.
Looking at a bogey, left.
And again, because of the way Shrike has to operate, we want them to leave their radars on, and unless that track system is
he's a friendly.
continuously looking at us, it's not going to guide the Shrike. So you either need somebody else to be out in front of you, pissing the thing off to get the track radar to go do its thing, and then shoot basically down that line. Or you need to target a different radar system. In our particular case, we're going to be attacking the search radar. Alright, so let's go ahead and aim as best we can. We know our search radar is right about there. Oh, there's our pull-up cue. Holding the pickle button down. Magnum. And don't have a whole lot of hopes for this one, but if it actually gets there and does what it needs to do, we will count that as a victory. Yeah, that is sailing well over the target right now. But I think it sees it. It definitely pivoted. It's wobbling. It's doing its thing, and it's going to be close enough. Close enough. All right. I'm glad we were streaming that, as I've not had the most success there with Loft shots from the AGM-45. But that one did its thing.
Roger.
And we managed to pull that off from about 15 miles away.
For diversion.
Yeah, no kidding, iHorde. Alright, well, we've got another Loft-capable missile. Because again, that seeker head has to be tuned differently than the direct ones.
We've got a friendly, bra, right gimbal, 33 miles, Angels 19.
I believe the,
Bra, right 55, 42 miles, Angels 19.
I believe the setup for that is, as far as like how the electronics work and all that, I want to say it's mostly along the line of there's a delay before it starts actually trying to guide to the target to account for the missile flying through the air. Alright, so we've got the different pulse tone. This is the SA-6 launcher now. We know it's out here near this town. Oh, you know what? There's something else we needed to do. Almost forgot about it. 3552 feet.
Roger that.
Got to tell that bombing computer that we are actually looking at a target at a given altitude, so it can do the math. There's our SA-6 site right under the Pipper. And there's our Q. Can we go 2 for 2? Magnum.
Missile, 12 o'clock.
He shot at us. Porpoise our way through life here. Oh my God. Okay, all right. I might have to take back what I said about loft mode. I can apparently use that to kill missile systems like that.
All right, got a new bogey. Right 50, 45
I mean, the
miles,
rest of the rules in that one
20,000.
kind of still works. You want to attack something that's got a continuous radar of some stretch. In this case, it was the straight flush combined radar system.
Not hitting any IFF.
But we just killed ourselves an SA-6 straight flush system and an SA-3 system with loft mode and the Shrike. I'll take that. All right, we got 6,000 pounds of gas. I think that should be plenty of distance to run out to another SA-3 site.
Bogey, right 5, 37 miles, 18,500.
Now these are going to be on direct, so it's going to be a little different.
Positive IFF target is friendly.
059, 450
And let's see, that's 3516 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on the stream this time too. It's 100% hit rate with those so far today. Well, I mean, to be fair, if I was flying this aircraft as an actual two-seat and I was in the back seat doing this nonsense, I'd have to be spinning dials to get that set up. So yeah, I'm just telling the weapon system officer to do his job. All right, so these we're going to be shooting on direct, which means we need to change from AGM-45 up to direct. Leave it in ARM.
Left 40, 31 miles, 6,500.
But I believe we're going to contact this tanker first. He's on 260.
No, not getting any IFF here. We have a new bogey. Left 30, 27 miles, 12,500.
And that was 50
Target
Yankee.
abandoned. Not getting any IFF.
Turn our flight director off here for a minute. And that is Texaco 2-1.
Texaco 2-1, OZ-1, request rejoin. OZ-1, Texaco 2-1, OZ-2 for contact at 17,000 at 300.
We're going to get ourselves some gas here, and then we'll go make that attack up by Alamo. And we'll see if we can't get more Shrikes on target. I've really only got like one more that's going to track to that target area. But we'll try it. It's been a good morning here so far. Alright, we'll have to go back and save a couple of clips of those Loft Shrikes actually getting to where they need to go. And successfully guiding to the target too. Big things about loft mode though is you definitely want to make sure that you have properly configured the bombing table and computer for our WRCS AGM-45 with your target's altitude to the nearest 10 feet. You also need to, as best you can, have some kind of visual marker for your target, because again, the Shrike has a very small seeker head, and it's got to be able to see that radar emitting within its field of view. And when it comes to loft, you're basically looking to try and have the missile fall onto it and go, okay, cool, I see it, and then guide. So it's not something like the Harm where you can be super high off bore and have the missile do all the work for you for turning around and looking at things and, you know, go forth and make the kill. You know, Shrike, much like sidearm, you have to kind of be super close to pointing at the target so that the seeker head can see it. And if you don't have the WRCS altitude set more or less correctly, you're going to be out of position as far as where that missile is and where it thinks it needs to go, because it's basically doing a bunch of algebra and trig to figure out, you know, where do I need to be, where do I need to look at, what are my known target points, because I know my altitude when I was fired, I know my airspeed when I was fired, and if you can tell me how tall the target is, then I know where my endpoint's supposed to be, so let me figure out all of the other things in between to go pull up here, point at the sky, let the weapon go, and hope for the best. The missile does in fact know where it is because it knows where it isn't. Before we go meet up with this tanker, we might have to go deal with some friends. Sparrow selected.
Yes, sir. Locked. 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4 potato, shoot!
How's the fuel, he asks. You're the one who just told me that we're close enough to somebody that I need to think about defending the the airframe first before I go get gas. I blame you, Jester. I believe our friends are currently cold to us and are turning left to come back on their patrol. Still a little bit outside of visual range. Oh, he's hot to us now, though. Good parameters. Fox 1.
Ah, damn, we've got mud. 11 o'clock. It's A8. And, nails, 12 o'clock.
There he goes.
We have a bandit. 12 o'clock. 3 miles.
You choose to trust you, Sparrow. No, it's not going to do it. Fox 1. Oh, don't make me dump my stores. That'd be bad.
Twelve o'clock now. He's at our 12 o'clock.
Oh, he dragged me into his friend. All right.
7 o'clock now.
Out we go. Which is fine. We're going to go and reset it. And we'll change airframes a little bit. And we'll do this again. We'll talk about the HTS on the F-16. Alright, so while it's loading all of our textures in here, take a very brief period of time to start this jet. %, up. Let's go ahead and get the throttle out of the detent. Doop. Alright, miscellaneous helmet.
Overlord 1-1, passing waypoint 1 at 28,000.
That's done. Preemptively configure our air-to-ground stores and our other pages.
At 28,000.
And while we are finishing the alignment here in the next minute, we'll do a quick walk around of the jet. Alright, so this is understandably not as limited in the 1975 era threat environment as the rest of the map is, because it's for teaching purposes. So we have an AIM-120 Sidewinder and AIM-9X Sidewinder and AIM-120 AMRAAM on the outermost pylons there on either wing for air defense. We are carrying CBU-105s on the smart weapons pylon, and a pair of AGM-88C harms on our inner pylons. We are also armed and equipped with the harm targeting system and the sniper advanced targeting pod. We could bring the Longboy pod up, but it's going to be wholeheartedly unnecessary for what we're doing. Alignment is complete. So we're going to go ahead and give ourselves a little roll. Just kidding. Go ahead and program a couple of waypoints real quick. Alright, so waypoint number 1, go after Mr. SA6, who has been resurrected from the dead and is hanging out about here. We'll find ourselves an empty steer point. That'll work. Alright, so we have north 6 48 009er. Just kidding, that's not east, that's west. 116 7 021, enter, and at 3544 feet. And just for the extra giggles, we'll go ahead and put one up here for steer point 6. So I'm very, very nearly imperceptibly rolling forward on idle power. 6 5 6 2 8 8. So I spend a lot of time on maps that are east of the prime meridian. E952, enter. Alright, got our attack point set up. It's such a change to go from flying something as claustrophobic as the F-4. Which is a lot like flying a Y-wing, really. And then jump into this with just unrestricted visibility. Alright, so we're going to go after the SA-6 first, and we're going to attack him using the harm targeting system. We're going to go ahead and make it soy by pressing TMS down. Puts the little square box around it to indicate that we're using the pod. Now, those who might be a little newer to the F-16 or are somewhat unfamiliar with it might leave the pod on as is. And when you don't know what your threat environment is, that is not the worst thing to do. But it does take over a minute for its scan time to search all of the different databases and classes looking for threats. What the hell does that mean? Well, if you've used the HAD at all on other public servers and things like that, you'll note that the time frame between scanning and looking for a SAM and going, you know, somebody says that it's popped up and it started shooting and it's doing all these other things, compared to when it actually shows up on your head, has a rather significant delay. And a minute doesn't sound like a long time until you're desperately trying to fight something off, and then it's the longest 60 seconds of your career. So the larger things that we're looking at is we need to shorten that time frame. And there's a way that you can do it so long as you know what classes are in play and what systems you're looking to fight. And the super short answer that we have for it is that classes 1 and 2 is where most of the Soviet-based systems are located. So if you turn off all of these other classes, you'll stop looking for things like Patriot, you'll stop looking for things like Hawk, you'll start looking for, you know, a lot of the systems and things that are Western in origin. Now, if you're fighting an adversary like, you know, Iran, that might have a bunch of Western equipment, that's not going to be as helpful for you. Simply because, you know, you need to be able to identify those other systems too, so you'll want to have more of those classes picked up. However, if you know that what you're fighting, and you understand what systems are in play, and, you know, what your adversary is, we got our scan time all the way down to 21 seconds. Less than half the length of time that searching for all of these batteries was going to be. Which really does let us get in here and use the harm targeting system to quickly identify where targets are and engage them a bit faster, searching for and updating that information. It's also controlling how fast it updates where the positions of these different SAMs are. For example, let me go ahead and grab the search radar real quick. And we can see that it is in PGM5, which is not terribly accurate. The HTS is going to take continuous readings, and as it updates the geo position of the SAM site, you'll see that it moves around. A search radar in a truck, or a search radar that's been deployed and took the time to set up, and, you know, then the poor grunts on the ground who are manning the SAM battery, you know, have to go out and take a break and maybe get lunch or go on a hike or, you know, find the sergeant's coffee mug, whatever it is that they need to do. They're not going to be packing up and moving that site, wiggling it all around and everything else. So as you're flying around, you'll note that it will adjust position until you finally get down to a PGM 2 or 3, which is a single aircraft. You're never going to get better than PGM 2 precision. You have to have 3 aircraft on the same data link with HTSs spread out a little bit so that it can triangulate and really geolocate the SAM site as it shares information in order to get down to a PGM 1 precision, which at that point you could use the HTS and then swap over to a targeting pod or something just to confirm whatever it is you're looking at, and you might be able to attack it with bombs rather than harms. But yeah, the lower the number, the more precise we're looking at.
Pontiac 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 028460 at 12,000, hold.
And yeah, Ihort really is one of the finest F-16 drivers I know, and he lives for seed. Iron Hand is his thing. And spends a lot of time digging into the Chuck's guides and into the bones of what the F-16 is capable of doing, and really making that work. So that would be the place to check to get the actual classes, what systems are where, and know which threat systems and tables you should be searching for, because you really want to minimize the number of different threat parameters that the pod is looking for unless you have no clue what could possibly be out there. So far, Mr. SA6 has not woken up, but I suspect he will be doing so shortly. As he has, and about 20 seconds from that first ping on the RWR, we should start seeing him. And we're going to cruise around a little bit and try and get a little bit better precision before we go after him. But at this point, I have used target management system up after boxing the target. And it is now illuminated in red to let us know that we are looking at it. And we can see the reach of our harm based on current altitude and airspeed on the HTS as an expression of that circle. Now, if we knew that he was hiding at a very particular waypoint, if we had that level of precision on our waypoints, we could use a pre-program mode to go attack him. Yeah, there we go. We're PGM 2. I am just going to go ahead and center him up a little bit so that the harm doesn't have to maneuver a whole bunch, but we could fire that all kinds of directions to go after the target. All right, here we go. Magnum. Magnum SA6. That is on its way. Harm is lofting itself, very similar to what we did with the Shrike, but it's following its own computer programming there. For now, we're going to go ahead and go up waypoint 6, and I'm going to change from the HAD to weapon, because we're going to use this harm on this SA3 site, using the harm as a sensor, as compared to using the HTS, which is what we were doing before. So the first thing that we're going to notice is that we are on table 1. You can see right here on this little button here, TBL1. And on the left side of the screen, table 1 is looking for an SA-10, a Big Bird search radar, a clamshell radar, an SA-11, and a snowdrift. So it's really going to look for probably the most dangerous SAM threats that are in the game for long to medium range. And that's a dead SAM site. Table 2. SA-19, that's the Tunguska, SA-15 Tor, SA-8, artillery radar, and dog ear early warning radar systems. And then we have SA3, SA5, SA6, SA2. I believe that's actually SA13 for its ranging radar, because there is a tiny dish on there. It doesn't actually search, because it's an infrared system. But it does have a little ranging radar component. So you need to make sure that you're looking at the right table that's got the right SAM site on it. The weapon system shows that it is ready. Oh, okay, it is an S, so it's a search system. Got it. Turn towards our target area here. And we should, there it is, 3A. TMS up, target's locked. Get that right about in the center of that crosshair and send it. Magnum. I see, SA5 does not exist on those tables. That's a good thing. Now this little search bar at the top will show you kind of what it's picking up. So you can try to look for the right things. And that really didn't go after it at all. Thanks, Harm. We might have been a little close for that. All right, let's go ahead and go back to our targeting pod here. Oh, right, I need my bombas. Want them in visible mode. And I got my box for my helmet. I'm using the helmet as the target reference there. Our sensor of interest. But Mr. SA3 is still a problem. He thinks he is safe behind this cloud, using this atmospheric shield to his advantage. Now, how little he knows TMS up, how dead he is about to be. Just confirm real quick. Yep, pod's looking close enough. We managed to actually tag him right where we wanted. Pickle. Gravity help us out here. We escape away from Mr. SA3. Look at him, so wind corrected. Guided by the satellites in the sky. Bringing the spicy paratroopers. Hey man, it's an awfully nice SAM site you got there. Be a shame if we delivered freedom to it. Okay, so with the death of that SAM site, let's just zoom in here a little bit. And pick out some other victims, like this guy. We got 3 more cluster bombs on board. Let's just really rain hell on all of their air defenses. And now, you know, we're a mite close for that, but should be able to dive down and make up the difference. Pickle. There to go. And there should be Jan Shilka battery. Look at them in all their high-res glory. There goes the spicy coffee cans. Go back to Cat 1 since we're now light. Uh-oh. All right. So all that is sorted. Transmit, receive. We can get our ILS needles here as well for Nellis, which should be 109. Yeah, 109.10. Runway's course puts us on 21 left, so it's going to be 210.
Pontiac 1, Overlord, wind 1, Bra, 049450 at 12,000 knots.
Yeah, we will head for home. We are only an hour into today's flying and teaching time, so I think we will go ahead and grab that F4 again after we touch down. So we can play with the Shrikes a little bit more, since I know folks were looking forward to that here over the last couple of weeks. And we actually scored some kills with those today. Save our weapons. Turn our lights back on. $30 miles to go. Another mostly clear day over skies of Las Vegas and Nellis Air Force Base. Which is a little different compared to the reality of the last handful of days here. It's the Las Vegas Motor Speedway off to the left, and Nellis Air Force Base here just right of our flight path marker.
Altitude. Altitude.
Brakes are fully extended. I'm going to leave those out. We're picking up a mixture of the TACAN beacon and now the VOR and ILS tower. Holding the nose up here, do a little bit of aero braking. It's falling on its own, apply the brakes. Look over my shoulder, trigger would usually be like right there. Okay. Could have grabbed the volume knobs and just dragged them down, but yeah, just change the TACAN beacon we're looking at. Well, it worked out well against the SA 3 and 6 the last time. Let's go ahead and reset it one more time. Got plenty of time here left yet, and we will give it another chance with the Phantom. This will be good for folks too, as you get the startup of the Phantom here and everything else.
Hey, what alignment do you want? Stored heading alignment, you got it.
Roger.
Not quite dressed for what we need yet, so let's go ahead and get that going. Yeah, we'll go with my
Carts locked and loaded.
desert paint scheme this time. We're going to carry Shrikes, those pylons, and configure our right wing flat face. Install the WP marker charge and the loft attack. I can say from my own experience that these listings here do function and look for the radar types that they indicate. It will give you all of the beeping information that you need to be able to successfully find those targets. All right, carrying on with the right wing, we'll also configure that for flat face. Leave it in direct attack. Carry some slightly jankier Sparrows. Durandal, Rockeye. Rockeye would be the classic, as disappointing as that weapon system is in this game. Sure, why not? We'll do it for the looks. Opposite pylon, we will configure this one. I used the Mark 49 Mod 1 for low blow and straight flush earlier. Install the Willie Pete charge. Sidewinder. Loft attack. And straight flush. Install the charge.
Request rearming.
Okay, so we've called for the starting cartridges to be loaded up rather than having to go through the whole connect air power, connect electrical power, whole 9 yards. Just going to hold the igniters down. And our engine start switches left and right. Pump out our vape cloud of shotgun shell energy. We already took the throttles out of detent, left and right engine master switches are on, and the generator switches were on.
Rearming complete.
And as we come up to power, we'll let go of the igniters.
Our generator's up. I can start the alignment.
Hey, sure are, buddy. Go to town. Just gonna adjust my seat here real quick before we get going. Put our helmet on, close the canopy. Let's preemptively get ourselves ready to fight.
Canopy down and locked, lights out, and stripes aligned.
If I need to use my bombs, I want them on about that ripple pattern. And we're going to drop them in sticks of 3. Set our correction. Altimeter's ready to go. Guns in low rate, radar selected for the display. Turn on the IFF. Go with our classic transponder setup of 42 and 1776. Check our mirrors and our drip. Our aviator's on. Jump in the back seat very quickly, turn the handle so if Jester decides to leave, he'll take us with him. Oral tone is configured to a standard volume. And while we're waiting on that, we are just going to go ahead and plop down our map markers for Mr. SA3. If I don't close it, minimize it instead. Monsieur SA6. Looking real good.
Alignment's done. Go primary sync now. Ready to taxi.
3 points down on the trim. Trim indicator's over here. Chief, you can get the chocks off the jet.
Roger. And the wheel chocks are out. Have a good flight, sir. Disconnecting. See ya. Slats out, sir.
All right,
Flaps
who's
down.
ready to go flying?
Okay, so as before, we're going to try and get out there and attack those 2 sites. We're going to start with the SA3.
Okay, tell me, how low are we flying today?
And the SA3's altitude there, 3950 feet. It's important. We're going to want to pull up the bombing table. WRCS AGM-45.
Copy.
3950, tell Jester and close.
Roger. Diversion steering set.
Go past Old Man Rivers here. Aggressor F5s. Commie spies are everywhere. Watch your 6, folks. It is a very cheesy movie there for 1980, but you can really get a good feel for what Vegas was like in that time frame. And for those who've spent any length of time at all on Nellis, how little parts of that base has changed in 50 years. Well, 40, but you know what I mean. It's closing in somewhat quickly as we go from 45 to 50 on that one. Yeah, if I've got to feel it, you got to feel it, sir. That's only fair. Any minute now, Chief is going to come staggering into chat and ask us what it was like in the time before color television.
Engine's good, airspeed off the peg. 80 knots. 100 knots. 50 more and we'll be airborne. Gears moving. Flaps up. Gear up.
One scan line at a time.
Okay, nails. 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
Is it really just like right off the runway heading? No, it is not. You think that was accurate? Might have to see about getting those first couple Loft harm shot or Loft Shrike shots and post the clips of those into Pro Gamer screenshots. Just as proof to the rest of the squadron.
Mud on our nose, 12 o'clock. AAA.
Started to pick up that search radar. I think it's one of the dumbest lines that they threw in for Jester. And at the same time, I can understand where it might have been a situation of like, you know, maybe they didn't have him available for the voice line, so they just took some part of him saying the letter A. But I know there's other instances where he says AAA in the F-14. Why couldn't you just borrow that? Mud Spike, AAA? No, just AAA, buddy. Come on. Just AAA and on you go. Okay, so just to recap as we are en route to our target. We are in AGM-45 mode. And that's on our delivery mode dial. And again, this AGM-45 mode is specifically for Loft. If you're using them in direct, you want to be in direct mode instead. You have ARM selected for our weapon selector dial. And we have an appropriate pylon that is currently looking for a flat face search radar system, which is what we're picking up on our needles. Our flight director has been turned on so that we can see that bar. We have also gone into the bombing table, changed our mode of delivery to WRCS AGM-45, and selected our target altitude rounded to the nearest 10 feet. Which in this case, 3953. So 3950. I'm going to close to approximately 15 miles. We still got a little bit of flying time to go. And again, as a reminder, we're going to be using our AOA indexers as our pull-up cues. So when we see the little triangle come up, that's when we know that we need to pull up in that direction that it is indicating. The lower segment of it with the triangle pointing up means pull up. The upper segment with the triangle pointing down means nose down. And the circle means maintain position while holding the pickle button down and wait for the missile to come off the rail. We do want to make sure that we are pointed more or less right at the target when we start looking for it. And then our movements are smooth.
Mud, 11 o'clock, SA6.
Just getting a little more altitude here because we're going to have a little bit of a shallow dive when we start. And as we look down our nose and start seeing the general area that that place sits in, is more or less right about here. "22 miles to go," or 22 miles to the target. We're going to be launching long before then. We'll start our shallow dive here, aiming for that left corner of that little patch.
Left 35 degrees, 41 miles, 16,500. Negative IFF.
Just waiting on that indexer. There it is. Oh. Come back, Shane. Pressing the button, nosing up, holding, off it goes.
new bogey, right 15, 38 miles, 14,000.
Put the autopilot on.
He paints, it is a friendly.
And as we recall the last time, this thing started a plunge, but I think this time it's going to overshoot. And we might have been a little too far nose up. But we didn't miss by much. I'll still take that one as a win in this case. Earlier in the stream, we actually killed that target with the Loft attack.
I see a new bogey. Left 45, 28 miles, 19,500. Target paints, it's a friend.
Magnum. See if this one fares any better. Well, it looks like I found it a little earlier. This one, we remember we had the seeker head tuned to direct mode.
32 miles, 17,000.
So as long as it's got the E, it might actually get there.
Positive IFF. Target is a friendly.
It's spinning like that because remember it's built off of a Sparrow seeker head body, so it's trying to twirl to mutate the little sensor on it. There it goes. So it kind of wobbles that way as it, rides the beam a little bit, is a little above it, a little below it. Okay. That is one dead SA3 site. Yeah, if you look at the actually, I think there's a kneeboard page for it for the F4. Which the kneeboard pages they include for the F4 are actually very spectacular. Hey, here we go. So you can see where we got this little like rose pattern in the center. What that is when you turn CW on for the radar, there's a little device inside the nose of the radar for the F4 that spins in the same sort of pattern. And the Sparrow is looking for that kind of radar reflected energy to hunt down the target. Well, the Shrike, being reverse engineered from the Sparrow for this kind of work to go kill radar sites, can't spin on its own. Well, it doesn't have anything spinning like the Sparrow missile system does. So it rotates itself to try and generate the same sort of thing that it's looking for. Which is why the missile kind of spins and the fins actuate all over the place as it's cruising through the sky, which costs it a little bit of distance potential, but it's not necessarily what you're looking for when you're throwing that kind of a weapon. All right, let's see if we can go 2 for 2 against the SA-6 with the Shrike. We have a different pulse sound here. And our SA-6 system is kind of just off the corner of that little town in front of us there. We're in loft mode with the Shrike. Just waiting on that indexer to pop up. Oh, we gotta actually change our height that we're looking at. 3547.
Got it. New bogey, right 10 degrees, 43 miles, 17,000. It's a friend. IFF checks out.
There's our tone, or our indicator rather. Pulling the nose up, keeping it smooth, and Magnum. And we're just going to go ahead and immediately defend from Mr. SA-6 because he shot at us about the same. Yep, there it goes. Put the autopilot on so we could watch this guy. And as he falls, he's making that slight left turn. I think we might have him. I think we might have him. Kaboom, dead SA-6. Without the straight flush search track radar in play, that system is dead and is no longer worth our effort or thought process. Oh, we got some disappointing cluster bombs on board. Let's go ahead and see if we can pitch those over the top of our pretend SA-2 site. That's not actually able to see anything. Yeah, let's put a map marker down kind of here in the area. Turn that off, we won't need that for now. Takes them a minute to update
Wilco.
new map markers once they're placed.
Diversion steering set.
As I recall, with the Rockeye 2s, they need to be dropped above 4,000 feet or they will just immediately burst. This is less helpful to our purposes. Let's go ahead and get some altitude here. If I was doing this one for realsies, and for some reason I decided I want to bring Rockeye 2s. Those are kind of two operational phrases there, really. I'd probably come in low, pop up to above 4,000 feet, and then drop the bombs on top of them. But for our purposes, we know this site is not a threat. Sometimes it's nice to have either unattended or otherwise inactive targets, just to practice putting the weapons in the zone, and then do it again with a live setup. There's our SA2 site. All right, let me make this attack, and then I'll read the message there and try and answer your question. Ripple 3. No, they already burst. They already burst. Any idea what goes on the back? Oh, okay, when you fill out the bomb table for arms. Yeah, actually we can kind of look at that. Alright, if these are just going to burst on their way to the ground, which is odd behavior for that missile, or bomb rather, because it should stay intact until it hits a altitude or time threshold.
Captured.
Okay, that might actually be useful in threes against a site like that at low altitude. Let's see where that might work out. I still rather drop Mark 82s, but that does let me get closer to it without killing myself, which is always a nice touch. And that's a very dead SAM site with that triple burst. We put enough hockey pucks in play that they actually hit the target. Okay, so what goes on in the back? Let me point myself in a safe direction that's not going to immediately go out to Groom Lake. Oh yeah, no, I tend to agree. I'd rather use the iron bombs and cluster bombs, especially how they're modeled here. Because unless those skeets actually hit on top of the target itself, it's not going to register any damage to it whatsoever, which I know that's kind of how that works in real life too, but usually when you pitch out a bunch of cluster bombs like that, there's at least some of them that are going to get close enough to damage certain objects, if not destroy them. All right. So here we go. We got the autopilot on. We're going to jump into the back seat and look at the WRCS. Which he did not set. Oh, no, he did set it. It's this knob right here where it says outrange. So if you were in the back seat, you can get it to within 100 feet, and he's got it set for just about 3,500 or 3,500 feet, which was the target range for, where's that SA6 at? That was up here. Yeah, 3547. And if I jump back here and look, he is dialed in altitude range roughly 3547. So you kind of have to guess with it a little bit when you're actually in the back seat setting it. But that is the knob that you would set, and then at that point you're good to go. It'll give you the right cueing information for the pilot. So if I was operating in the back seat, specifically for the loft mode is the best part with it. Direct, it does help with a little bit too, because basically what you're looking at is the onboard computer for the F4 is very, very simple, and in some ways a little mechanical. It isn't truly, but basically what you're looking at is you need to know a certain number of data points so that the Shrike can go, okay, cool, I'm going to get into the target area and hit it. So if you know what your own altitude is, which is generally between like 15 to 18,000 feet, you're generally shooting at about 15 nautical miles, give or take. You're not going to get much more range out of that because, again, if you think of it in terms of being similar to Sparrow, you can really understand kind of what range bands you're looking at for hitting a target. Is it theoretically possible to hit a target with a Shrike at 20 nautical miles? Yes. Are your odds exceptionally good at doing that at that range? No. Because the missile might run out of go-go juice before it gets there. But if you know how tall the ground is, then when the pilot points the aircraft at the target, because that's, again, part of our attack, is we will center up these needles on our flight director over the top of the active SAM site. When the mechanical computer goes, okay, parameters are looking good, that's when you're going to get the firing cues on the HUD for your indexer, and that tells you when to pull up, at what point to stop your nose up, and then wait for the missile to come off the rail. From the time that the AOA indexer actually illuminates until the weapon comes off the rail is the time frame that I'm holding the pickle button down. So just to kind of simulate a launch here with it, pretending that I've got a SAM site. Yeah, we'll go with the Motor Speedway. So Las Vegas Motor Speedway has a SAM site in the middle of it, right in between those two little dividers. I'm going to put the pipper on it. I'm listening to the tone. When I see the AOA indexer illuminate, usually on the bottom chevron with the triangle pointing up, which tells me that I need to pull up, I will hold the pickle button down, and I will ease the nose up, smooth, keeping the target as centered as I can, until such time that the AOA indexer gets to the center circle, and then I'm going to hold that position until the weapon comes off the rail and then release. Because again, a lot of the limitations with Shrike is the seeker head on it is only good for about 3 degrees worth of movement. So you need to actually keep that weapon pointed largely at the target for the duration of its flight. When you're using it in loft mode, you're basically trying to pitch it above the target so that as the missile falls out of the sky, it goes, oh, hey, I see it, and then it uses gravity to assist it for that last little bit to get to the target to try and kill it. Yeah, a lot of the things that we do with modern computers handles all of that through the solid state electronics and computer chips and everything else. It used very basic onboard, basically rolling tumblers and whatnot to do that in the before times of all that technology. But proof's in the pudding today. We've killed that SA-6 twice with Loft attacks with Shrike, which is a feat unto itself. Let's go ahead and raise our seat, switch the master arm off. Start safing all of our nonsense. Landing lights on. All of our other wing lights are on. I mean, to be fair, I spend a lot more of my time deep down in the weeds and doing pop-ups at close range and toss bombing and everything else. Loft, though, you do want to have some altitude, because the more altitude that you have, the better off you are for trying to get that weapon into the target. It is possible to loft those from lower altitude, but I've had the most success with a release at somewhere between 15 and 18,000 feet. Yeah, usually when I'm down here deep on the ground doing all of the seed work or strike targets or anything else like that, I'm in the weeds most of the time. Like, I might spend higher altitudes for the cruise phase of a flight, as long as the SA-5s allow me to do it. Just to save some gas, but when it comes to the attack, you can ask Ihort, Trigger, Chief, really anybody else, I do like attacking, doing pop-ups from low altitude.
Okay, gear, flaps, pressure, warning lights, anti-skid.
JDAMs, iron bombs, cluster bombs, you name it. A little heavy on one side with the Shrike still on board that special weapons pylon, so we're bringing that back to the weapons school.
Oh, are we there yet? Man, that was awesome.
Okay, we'll activate the 230 air conditioning system on board the Phantom. Two canopies open at 30 knots. I definitely like fighting with the Phantom. It's a good machine. It does not hold up very well in the more modern threat environment, as one would expect. That's not really a dig at that. That's just reality. But anything Cold War related from 1989 on back, she can get the work done, even with goofy missiles like Bullpup or Shrike, or just having Sparrows and earlier model Sidewinders. Or 9Ms if it's, you know, late 80s, mid 80s. We used the 9M for a long time. The Bullpups are a little interesting. We used those a couple of weeks ago on stream. I think that VOD should still be up. And the biggest thing with it is making sure you use the hand control unit, which I have bound to a thumb axis. You know what? Let me just do something real quick with them while you're here. Yeah, the Maverick uses the same thing, the hand control unit, to control and steer those. Take one of those. Take one of those. That on. Another fat Bullpup. And a skinny Bullpup.
Request refueling. Request rearming. Copy.
Canopy down and locked. Lights out. Stripes aligned.
Yep, so while it's going through all that, the big thing to bind is the hand control unit, which I've actually bound to a thumb axis on my VKB Gladiator. And just for my own simplicity's sake, I went ahead and I bound it like I would airplane controls. So if I pull down on it, that's as if I want nose up. Push up on it, that's as if I want nose down. And that seems to work out rather well because the hand control unit works opposite, it looks like, for the vertical axis. Like I'm actually pulling down on the thumb hat and it's pushing up on that one. So bind it like you would airplane controls and ignore the movement on the actual thing. These are fired in direct mode and with the AGM-12 selector. Doesn't matter which type of bullpup. The A's and B's, their main difference is the propellant that they use. The C's are physically quite a bit larger than the A's and B's. But we'll go ahead and we'll refuel, we'll come back out to the unattended target range, and we'll use the bullpups on those. And then we'll land at Creech, and then we'll do a review attack view, and we'll call that a lesson stream for the day. So while we're refueling, some quick things about the bullpup, a little bit of history and combat use type situations. Bullpup was our first guided air-to-ground missile. We've had radio-controlled glide bombs since World War II, which the Navy used to great effect in the later stages of the war. We had used some of those in Army Air Force service as modifications of the German Fritz bomb, which used radio-controlled guidance. In those days, it was a little more fraught because you're basically dropping that bomb off a propeller-driven aircraft and then had to maneuver sharply to keep yourself behind the bomb so that you could see where it's going and have the bombardier steer it. Same sort of concept with this one, because the bullpup has a pair of large flares on the back of the missile that the pilot is going to use as its visual reference to steer the weapon onto the target. It produces a very noticeable smoke trail, and in Vietnam especially, where we saw a lot of uses of the bullpup, especially early phase with F-100 Super Sabres and earlier F-4s before we had developed electro-optical systems and TV guidance, and then eventually led to Maverick and a true fire and forget type weapon. The manual command line of sight, or MACLOS guided bullpup, had to be steered to the target. Well, if you've got a very visible flare and a very visible smoke plume, what S-60 and ZU-23 gunners would do in Vietnam is just aim up the smoke trail and just shoot. And the odds were actually pretty good of striking the attacking aircraft while it's trying to guide the weapon to the target. There's our bullpups. We got the C variant, the big fat one there in the inner pylon, and the B variant on the outer pylons. So eventually what our pilots learned to do to try and offset this this problem, because the pilot is steering the weapon, he has to be able to see the weapon and the target ideally in line with each other in order to successfully attack it. So what pilots would do is fire the bullpup, and during the short period of time before the bullpup is actually able to be steered, because it does have a minimum distance before it accepts commands as it boosts up to speed, is they would offset a few degrees left or right, up or down of the missile's initial launch, and tried to steer it in that way. At the end of the day, manual command line of sight is not something that was used for super long, as that was highly impractical as a guidance system means. But it did set the stage for semi-automatic command line of sight missiles, or SACLOS, which were used to great effect, primarily with tanks like tow missiles and things like that, or some attack helicopters use SACLOS guided missiles, where the only thing the gunner has to do is keep the target in the crosshair, and radio commands will be sent semi-automatically to the missile and steer it onto the target as long as you're aiming at it with the crosshair. A lot of advances that came from the history on that one. We're going to start with the outer pylons. Go ahead and warm those up. There's no arming time like with Maverick. With Maverick, you have to give it like 3 minutes as the seeker head is turned on and ready to fight. Bullpup is ready to go as soon as you turn it on.
Engine's good, airspeed off the peg. 80 knots. 100 knots. I feel like flying.
Did have the centerline bag on. Fly back out to our target area. I have used bullpups at a variety of altitudes. The most comfortable of which that I've found with it is about 10 to 15,000 feet, and in a shallow
we got
dive
nails,
towards your target.
1 o'clock.
I tend to shoot bullpups somewhere between 7 and 10 nautical miles, sometimes a little closer. Just because you are kind of limited to being able to see the target. So I wouldn't expect any fantastic long-range super shots against anything other than a highly visible target, like a boat or a building or something. Something that is very clear and very distinct from a long distance away.
Mud on our nose, 12 o'clock. AAA.
Just had to get one more AAA in there, didn't you, Jester? Alright, we got an ad that's going to start here in about a minute. We're just cruising out to the target, so I will catch up with some of you folks who are caught up in that ad in just a little bit.
All right, those are some nails, 2 o'clock. And nails, 2 o'clock.
Other aircraft that use Maclos guided missiles is the Viggen, which is another Heapler product. The Viggen's RB-05s are Maclos guided and are steered in the same sort of way. All right, we're coming up on that unattended target range.
Left 20 degrees, 36 miles, 19,500.
Welcome back from the ad break, folks. Those of you who are coming back on that.
Friendly.
That is our target. And we're going to aim for this guy out here on the end. It should be a ring-shaped target. That'll be our first shot. We are up about 15,000, 16,000 feet. Our weapons are selected. AGM-12 is on the weapon selector dial. Direct mode is on the weapon release program. Delivery mode. Ripple and quantity elements are irrelevant. It will only fire one weapon at a time, as you can only guide one weapon at a time. Place Pipper a little above the target. And holding the button down, rifle. As soon as that motor discharges, we can steer it, which I'm now using the little stick to do. Trying to keep the flare over the target area, and we skirted past it a little bit. That's okay. It's bullpup. Longer range accuracy can be a little bit of a problem. And we can see where that impact crater is. Not terribly far from that ring. Some of the ideal strategies that I've read about on that one is you kind of want to keep the flare over the top of the target. Especially if you're flying more or less straight line onto it. Descended now, we're about 10,000 feet. And holding the button down, rifle. There we go. Select our fatter bullpups. Extend a little bit and we'll try and attack that large lozenge-shaped group. Get comfy in my chair again here. I have used these to attack SAM sites and whatnot before out in the wild. I like having some style points in old aircraft with janky weapons. Dropping hobos on things is always fun too. Or walleyes. Walleyes are really nice. Alright, let's try this from a little longer range out. And rifle with the fat one. Felt that one come off the rail. And we struck the top part of that lozenge. Going to go and extend. We'll try and capture the other half of that objective with our last bullpup. I forget how much exactly bigger the C variant is compared to the others, but it certainly feels like throwing a Mark 83 with a rocket motor at something, which is always a nice touch. I miss you, GBU-15. You had such potential. Let's pick up our throttles here. So we are very slow, under 250 knots. And rifle. Kaboom. Right down the center. But you can see, given how we have to kind of keep ourselves very fixed, that if there was a reasonably capable gunner down there, he could just shoot straight back up the trail and probably hit us. That's not something I want to try and fly in a straight line for too long. And as always, work to defend your airframe first and foremost if you're attacking a live site with a lot of AAA and Shilkas and other things around it. Alright, let's go ahead and set our TACAN up for Creech. They don't have those kind of fusing options there on the on that weapon system. It doesn't have the little orange tick tab that you can use to change those kinds of things. They just are as they are. Not that I think you would want to really on that anyway, but I can see where a potential application might work on that. But no, there's no fusing options for it, so you're just kind of stuck with them blowing up when they make contact. The fusing options on the weapons that do allow for that, though, actually works fairly well. The only ones that I think that are a little squidgy still are the airburst ones. I've not really used those too often. But I've seen people who've been trying to use them, and they don't seem to be quite as effective as they might like them to be. Let's adjust our trim here. 250 gears coming down. 225 flaps are coming down, speed brake's coming in. Seats fully raised. Keep adjusting our trim here as we get a little closer.
Alrighty, gear, flaps, pressure, warning lights, anti-skid. you got that love and feeling? Because I think I just lost mine. Forever.
Just everything touched down all that hard at all. There wasn't even a heavy thump. There are times I like the Jester feedback, and then there's other times where, like, buddy, that was gentle as a damn lamb, but if you were off AOA parameters and things like that by too much, he gives you the bad landing feedback as compared to the things like, oh man, if that runway was the bread, you were the butter. Or, you know, are we there yet? Man, that was perfect. Or I hope the squadron saw that one. He's got some good lines. Yeah, some of that is your vertical speed when you make contact. Flying, if you're actually flying the AOA indexer all the way down. Listen to that beautiful solid tone screamed. Yep. It's all that. All vertical speed at the moment of contact, I think, is one of the main justifiers behind it. Alright, let's shut down the left engine so I don't accidentally swallow a ground crew member.
Roger. Wheel chocks in.
Okay, and go ahead and give me my ladder.
Roger. And done.
All right, move that stick up to the top end of the desk there. And we'll go ahead and close down from here. Give TAC View a look. That'll round us out here for today's flying lesson. As we get into sneak the peek here. So this should be our first one. Flying the F4 and focusing on the Shrikes. Skipping the entire climb out phase there for it. This was our first Loft attack against the SA-3. Pitch our nose down a little bit. And we're more or less looking right about dead center at that SA-3. The AOA indexer told us that it was time to pull up, so I hold the pickle button down, nose comes up, Shrike comes off the jet. And the neat thing here is that we are actually outside of Mr. SA-3's lethal range. The Shrike follows its ballistic arc, and then right about there turns on its seeker head to go, all right, I'm going to try and look for stuff now. And as it falls, and it gets into that 3-degree margin, you can see where it picks it up right about here where it makes that subtle left turn to get centered. You can see it's kind of making that rose pattern that we saw on the knee board earlier. And since I was targeting the search radar rather than the track, because remember, Shrike requires a continuous radar emission from the ground in order to guide. One of the strategies that the enemy imposed in Vietnam was to occasionally just turn the radars off when they see aircraft coming in to make an attack, which, from a suppression of enemy air defenses standpoint, does suppress the site, because if the radar's off, they can't shoot any missiles and guide them anywhere. But from the destruction of those air defenses, in order to make, immediate follow-up attacks later on that same afternoon before they have a chance to either fix the dish or replace it, it does mean all they have to do is turn it back on and they're ready to fight. But in this case, we targeted the search radar there for it, and we knocked the search radar out, and the track radar was close enough to the search radar that they died together. That is not always the case for most SAM sites. If you look at some of the larger strategic ones like SA-5, they tend to be separated from about a quarter mile between those different search and track systems so that they don't have any radar interference with one another. SA-2s are sometimes a little closer together, but even their search radars are usually a little offset. Some of the best result that you can have from that is if you can kill the search radar and you got a little smoke marker down there, in theory you can follow up on an area that actually has a more legitimately dispersed support network for its SAM site and go, okay, cool, it's right there. You can see the white smoke marker off in the distance, and we're just going to pulverize the area with Mark 82s and Snake Eyes and napalm and cluster munitions and whatever the hell else we're throwing down range today. This SA-6, though, which we can see out here, this is that deactivated SA-2 site. It's still, TACView still posts a lethal range on, even though the AI has been turned off for it. The SA-6 utilizes the straight flush system, which is a combination search and track system. So it's got one dish on it that spins around for the search, and has another one that is fixed looking in a given position for the track, all in the same vehicle. So in this case, targeting the search radar is targeting the track radar. Same thing, we are coming in, we're pointed at the system. And at about 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11 miles away, we get the indicator saying it's time to pull up. So we pitch the nose up, we throw the Shrike. He shoots at us. I dive away, give him some countermeasures, and put a piece of terrain between me and him, but his search radar is still active. And so Mr. Shrike descends and turns on its seeker head and goes, oh, I think I'm going to find it. Oh, hey, I see it. Such a shame if I just came down from space for you. We went to the moon a bunch, and bonk, down he goes. And because that SA-6 no longer has its search or track radar system, that site is eliminated. Now, the difference between the 6 and the 11 is the 11, all of the individual launchers have their own track radar systems associated with them, so you do have to kind of eliminate all of that site to make it go away. But for our purposes right now, that site's dead. Both those places are gone. And then we came out over here. My intention was to tank and then go attack this site here, but apparently our tanker got a little too close and Jester picked up these guys on the radar. That was what I said they were doing. They were cold to us and turning back around in their patrol path. And they turned into us. I fired a Sparrow. And he apparently broke radar contact enough. Sparrow didn't guide twice. And then while I was maneuvering around to try and get him, his friend got in behind me and killed me. Into that flight. For the second phase of our training flight today, we flew the F-16. Utilizing both the harm targeting system, killing the SA-6, and made an attempt with the weapon page of the harm. Which I've killed SAMs with that system before, but I think we might have just been in bad parameters for that shot. Here's the SA-6, which we killed from much further out. 24 miles away. We could have been as far away as almost 50 and probably killed him with the harm. Where did this missile go? Because I was locked onto the SA-3. But he just apparently went off into the hills. That's fine though, because we killed him with a cluster bomb. And then knocked his friends out with cluster bombs. And we went home. And then we took up, just to make sure it wasn't a fluke, took the F4 up again to do loft mode, the AGM-45. Now the first one that we fire here is actually one that is in loft mode. Like I told it to be a loft seeker head at the start, using that little weapon selector there for it. And we overshot the target by a little bit. And I think the reason why that was is that I'd actually pulled up a little too far. Because you kind of want to pull up and stop when you see the donut up and let the weapon come off at that point so that it has the best chance. And once again, the Shrike only having that very small seeker head in that 3-degree space, it never fell onto the radar system in the way that the other one did when we fired it the first time. And so it right into the dirt. The second Shrike that we fired, we were in loft mode on our selector still, but the weapon itself was set up for direct flight. And I believe we're going to see the difference here on this one. In that loft mode has a delay of some seconds before it turns on the seeker head to actually start looking for the target, where direct does not. So I followed my pull-up cues for it. I fired it in loft mode with a direct seeker head, and rather than cruising up into the sky to go ahead and make its trip down, it immediately goes, oh no, I see it, and gets on a trajectory to hit it. And thankfully, we were close enough that it had the energy to get there. But if we were trying for a much longer range shot, like, you know, making a good faith effort attempt to try and kill an SA-6 from outside of its weapon's reach, even if we were up at 25, 30,000 feet, or we could really send the Shrike after a longer range target, if we fire it in loft mode, it won't actually activate the seeker head right out the door, but in direct mode it did, so it followed a much flatter trajectory, but it still had the energy this time to get to the SA-3, and it killed it. The SA-6, we again fired a lofted Shrike at it. Fired a pair of weapons at us. I said no thank you, and rendered him into the past tense. And we came in to drop some cluster bombs, which these burst about 1.2 seconds afterwards, so it's definitely using the first fusing option there on that one. And they fell very short, so I said, okay, that's fine. What if I came in and dropped them a lot closer? And those worked. Then we landed, took off with bullpup. Turned in on our target there, fired the bullpup. Now TAC-View, since I'm the host on this one, as a single player mission, will actually show me the full path that this missile takes. I have noticed in TAC-View, however, that if other clients in multiplayer are firing bullpups, they're going to look super weird cruising through the sky. This one turned a little too much and I couldn't curve it back in to actually hit the target center, but we did hit close to it. Extended a little bit, came back around, fired another bullpup, and this time Kaboom. And we activated the thicker bullpups. Took out the first half. The lozenge-shaped target. And then the second half of that target. And we went to Creech. And now we're here. These weapon systems are very good. They can be employed successfully. They can strike their targets. Again, as I'd mentioned very early on with the Shrike, I have had success against all of the listed systems in DCS on the Shrike's actual page with the weapon system. So I've been able to kill fire can radars with it. I've been able to kill all of the SA2 system radars with it, the SA3 system radars with it, SA6s, as we demonstrated today. All of those do work. I am a lot less certain these days about the efficacy of the charts that have been floating around on the DCS forums and from Heapler and other places as far as what types of other systems they can engage, especially since ED is the one responsible for the weapons and not the individual developers anymore. So it's a little iffy if you can attack other systems like SA8 with that system. I've seen good tracking information with the Mark 49 Mod 0 and Mod 1 Shrike Seeker heads against the SA8, but I've not had consistently good guidance to that system. So I don't know if there's just something that's going on there with it where, because it's such a close-in type weapon system, I'm just having issues with it there. That's going to be something that I experiment a little bit more with on my own to try and figure that out. But in the meantime, I can safely say that any of the listed systems that are on the individual Shrike weapons page in the game, it will give you good tone information and guide to those individual specific targets. To make sure that I don't accidentally have multiple seeker head choices in line with one another, I try and make sure that my approaches to the target only have the one SAM site that I'm trying to kill in reach. But I have had moments, especially flying on the map that I built called State Scarlet that runs on the Pantheon servers from time to time. I have had moments where I have had a different SAM site, for want of a better expression, backlit by a different one, and have had the Shrike go, I'm confused, I don't know which one to go to, and choose the wrong site to try and cruise towards and, you know, try and hit something that is woefully outside of its reach. So that can happen sometimes. So just kind of be careful with where you throw those weapons and try and understand what is behind your target, which is good advice for any kind of shooting, you know. But we've shown that these systems can work. We've shown that they can kill their targets. And we've shown that loft mode can function as well. But the big things with it is you want to make sure that you use the WRCS page, either in with Jester, to have him set the target's expected altitude, or have your Wizzo do it if you're flying with a human Wizzo, using the appropriate control knob for that. Yeah, no, it's definitely a victory if it does. But make sure that you have that set up if you're using loft mode especially. It can be helpful in direct mode as well, you know, to know where the target actually is relative to the ground. I've seen things be a little bit better if you take the time to use the bomb page for that in the WRCS, just in general. But loft mode in particular, it's required, you know, because if you're trying to shoot at a target that you think is at sea level, you're going to be missing the mark by however many thousands or hundreds of feet it is between where the target is actually sitting and where the ground is. And on a map like Afghanistan, that actually could be a 10,000 foot difference. On a map like here in the NTTR in Nevada, It could be anywhere between 1,800 and 5,000 or 7,000 feet. You know, any of those kinds of things can cause massive problems with where that weapon goes if you don't have the right altitude set for where the target is. So keep those things in mind with it, and you should meet with some greater success. With that, folks, we're closing in on our usual 3-hour mark for the conclusion of stream, so we're going to go ahead and call the teaching lesson done there for today. As always ask for consent, try to communicate as best you can with your partners, try to be genuinely decent human beings, and I will catch up with you next time. We are off from the day job next week as well for the weekend, so we will have Pilum Teaches DCS for next week, just after the first of the year, which should be a good time. We'll see where we can get to on that. And with that, have a fantastic day. Thanks for watching, and all of the usual information is up on display there. Have a great day.